But every bond has its limits. Remember, young Caden, our Queen's answer to Novastra, who alone can communicate with the Empress. The threads of this psychic tapestry can be cut by them, manipulated to maintain order or inflict chaos. Disobedience among us is not tolerated. Caden gulped, the enormity of what he was hearing settling in. So what you're saying is that we're all bound by this higher order, no matter how powerful we think we are? Exactly. Rithalia's tendrils swirled in colors that suggested affirmation. You must understand this history, Caden, because the psychic powers you're learning to wield aren't mere tools. They're part of a much larger tapestry. A tapestry that you're now a part of. The psychic space seemed to expand, the weight of the galaxy filling it, and Caden felt smaller than ever, yet he also felt a surge of inspiration. The world was so much more extensive, more complex, and more interconnected than he'd ever imagined. And now, he was a part of it. Rithalia's psychic tendrils seemed to quiver with anticipation, her bioluminescent core pulsing like a heartbeat, a rhythm that Caden felt echoing in his own soul. But, young Caden, our tale does not end with the mere expanse of an empire, she started. Her tendrils produced a mesmerizing dance of color that commanded the psychic space between them, imbuing it with a feeling of solemn reverence. It continues through a web of choices and destinies, one of which led to our own planet, Scanthar. The psychic space transformed, showing the image of two ships, one a bioluminescent Lumivari craft, the other a human-built colony ship flying through the vastness of space. Octavius Aurelius's grand scheme was complex and ambitious. Each new world would receive both a planetary queen and a human colony ship. One could not thrive without the other. The queen would establish the Lumivari hive, while the humans would construct their new civilization. Caden watched in awe as holographic images depicted a thriving Lumivari colony and a human cityscape, both lush and advanced, side by side on an alien world. Rithalia's tone grew darker, deeper, more contemplative. But a world like Scanthar was unique, an anomaly. The original planetary queen who was sent with the colony ship perished during the colonization phase. It was a tragic event that could have led to the complete isolation and collapse of both the Lumivari and human settlers. Images played out, fire, smoke, and a dying Lumivari queen. But then, something emerged, a younger version of Rithalia. But fate had other plans. I was the backup, and the responsibility to evolve and become the new queen fell upon me. But with no contact with the Galactic Empire. Something unique happened here on Scanthar. The balance of power shifted. Here, humans and Lumivari evolved a society where both were seen as equal citizens, both given rights and responsibilities. As she spoke, the psychic space rippled with emotion. Caden felt a complex mixture of pride and longing, and perhaps a dash of defiance. Instead of building the transmitter to establish communication with Thalassar and the Galactic Empire, our leaders made a bold choice. They decided to protect this newfound equity and freedom by keeping Scanthar a secret. We hid, Caden. For hundreds of years we hid. The psychic landscape shimmered as if acknowledging the gravity of this revelation. Scanthar's history, its divergence from the Empire's design, loomed large, reframing Caden's understanding of his world and his place in it. Caden felt the magnitude of what Rithalia revealed settle around him like a mantle. So, we're renegades? A whole planet full of renegades? Rithalia's core emitted a color that Caden had come to associate with complicated emotions. Think of us more as guardians of a different path. We have a unique model of existence, one that could either enrich the Empire or be crushed by it. Caden sat in the cushioned chamber, the ethereal space the Rithalia had created for their psychic communion. His eyes widened, as if grappling with the newfound realization that had just crystallized in his mind. "So, this psychic shield around Scanthar," he began, "is it our way of protecting ourselves from being discovered by the Empire? Like a cloaking device?" "Ah, young Caden, you are becoming quite the discerning mind," Rithalia replied, her translucent form oscillating a deep, mysterious blue. Her tendrils wrapped around the air, gently tracing the contours of the psychic space they shared. The bioluminescent flickering that enveloped them reflected her approval, tinged with a subtle nuance of concern. Caden leaned forward, eager yet apprehensive. "Well, if we've been hiding all this time, it stands to reason there must be something keeping us hidden. Otherwise, wouldn't the Galactic Queen have sensed you and commanded you by now?" Rithalia's tendrils curled and extended, mirroring her thoughtful silence. "Your intuition runs deep, young one. You are correct. The psychic shield serves not just to cloak us from the outer world, but to protect me, and through me, all of Scanthar." Her tendrils shimmered with a myriad of colors, encapsulating the complexity of the history that had shaped her life and those of her human counterparts. Caden nodded, sifting through her words like precious stones. "So, it works both ways. A safeguard, but also a limitation. You can't reach out, but neither can they reach in." Rithalia's core pulsated, casting a luminous glow. "You understand, then? If my consciousness is shielded by Scanthar's psychic barrier, I am rendered hidden, undetectable. I am not defying the Galactic Queen because she remains unaware of my existence." Caden contemplated this, his eyes narrowing. "It's like we're walking a tightrope." "Indeed," Rithalia agreed, her tendrils curling like question marks. "Imagine we are hidden in a field, staying silent for fear of attracting attention. The others in the field might not be able to find you at the first noise you made. But it would be better if you had made no noise at all. Is that how you see the Galactic Empire?" asked Caden. "Yes," Rithalia replied. Her tendrils shivered, as if they too dreaded the unseen gaze of the greater cosmos. Silence is the means for survival. For who knows what exposure even a whisper could invite. Is it so terrible out there? Caden finally voiced the question, his tone tinged with foreboding. Rithalia's tendrils froze, her core darkened. Life in the Empire is not as we know it here. The Lumivari are submerged beneath the will of the Galactic Queen. Humans, too, live in a far more constrained society. The freedom and equality that we've cultivated here are alien to them. Caden felt the solemnity of her words, each syllable pulsing with ancient wisdom. Then we must protect this world. Rithalia, whatever it takes. As the psychic space around them dissolved, reality reasserting its dominion, Caden felt as if he had just awoken from a dream, yet one laden with irrevocable truth. He now looked upon his world through fresh eyes, aware of the intricate veil of secrets and precarious freedoms that had sheltered them for generations. Rithalia, her luminescent core dimming momentarily, seemed relieved, yet burdened by their newfound alliance. The next day, Caden continued his training. He felt the gravity of his unique role settle on him like an invisible cloak, interwoven with the furtive and fragile history of Scanthar. The ethereal glow of Rithalia's core maintained its steady pulse, wordlessly underscoring the solemnity of what had just been revealed. As the ambience of their psychic realm subtly changed, his thoughts meandered to the Lumivari, these enigmatic beings with whom he had a singular ability to communicate. Rithalia's tendrils vibrated softly, a harmonic ripple in a still pond. Caden, you're a bridge, a unique liaison between human and Lumivari worlds. As such, it becomes crucial for you to refine your psychic interaction. Your current psychic voice has the intensity of a tempest, awe-inspiring but potentially disruptive. The colors of her core shifted, radiating earnest purples and blues, colors he had learned to associate with profound sincerity. I see your point, Rithalia. So, how do we fine-tune this gift of mine? Rithalia's tendrils vibrated. Your psychic expressions are indeed quite powerful, young one. They resonate like a majestic thunderstorm, but sometimes a soft rain is more nurturing. Caden leaned back, contemplating the metaphor. How do I become the soft rain? Rithalia's core shimmered a soft green, reflective of patience and wisdom. It's all about harmonizing your energies. You have the vigor of youth, but that must be tempered with control. Caden felt an eagerness bubbling within him. All right, show me how. Rithalia extended her tendrils, weaving intricate patterns that began to coalesce into a luminous sphere between them. Reach into this psychic field, gently. Imagine your thoughts as a feather, not a hammer. Concentrating, Caden stretched out his psychic voice, visualizing the softness of a feather floating on the surface of a tranquil pond. The moment his thoughts touched the sphere, it glowed a harmonious purple. Very good, Rithalia beamed, her tendrils vibrating in accord with his achievement. You've done it. An opportunity presented itself almost immediately as Lyria, Mara's Lumivari, entered their ethereal psychic space. She had a core resembling swirling nebulas. Would you like to try speaking with Lyria? Rithalia suggested, her eyes glowing with pride. Hello, Lyria. Caden thought gently, ensuring his psychic voice retained the softness of a falling petal. The nebula within Lyria's core seemed to expand, then glow brighter. Ah. Hello, Caden. You've learned to speak more delicately. I could hear you all the way from your sister's room before. Caden chuckled, internally relieved. Is that so? Well, I had a good teacher. Lyria's core pulsated. Your improvement will mean much for the harmony of Scanthar. Each voice contributes to our collective psychic tapestry. Rithalia's tendrils curled with satisfaction. I knew you'd be quick to learn, Caden. Now, you can converse with other Lumivari without causing a stir, as if you're shouting across canyons. It's a new step, Caden agreed, but it's important. I am no longer a mere individual learning neat psychic tricks anymore. What we possess on Scanthar transcends the ordinary. We've got to protect it. The pulsating colors of both Rithalia and Lyria shimmered like a celestial choir, singing a song of agreement. You are wise beyond your years, Rithalia finally said. This path we walk will not be easy, but I cannot imagine a better companion for it. As the psychic field dissolved, and Caden felt the sensations of the physical world encroach once again, he was conscious of the invisible threads weaving him ever closer to the fate of his hidden world. The Lumivari, ancient and ethereal, held secrets yet to be uncovered, but for the first time he felt ready to unearth them. The next morning, as Caden tightened his shoelaces, his sister Mara bustled around him, frantically searching for her misplaced science textbook. He sensed a tug on his psychic energy, a shimmering echo that felt like an overexcited whisper. It was Lyria, Mara's Lumivari. Caden, Lyria's psychic voice chimed in his mind. Did you know that Mara talked to Jaren in her physics class yesterday? The Jaren. Who's Jaren? Asked Caden against his better judgment. Only the cutest boy in Mara's whole class. There's quite the buzz about him amongst Mara and her friends, although Danya made a pretty convincing argument for Titus's virtues the other day. Anyway, would you like to know how the boys in Mara's class feel about her? No. The sentence tumbled out, not in the quiet chambers of psychic dialogues, but audibly, into the physical world. Mara looked up, puzzled. Did you say something? Caden shook his head. Never mind. Let's go. We're getting late for school. Later that afternoon, Caden was seated in his history class, scribbling notes about the founding of the Galactic Empire, when another psychic voice intruded upon his thoughts. This one felt more buoyant, like bubbles of laughter. "Hello, Caden," announced Alumis, Saria's Lumivari. "Greetings, Caden. I've heard fascinating things about your recent psychic finesse. You're the talk of the Lumivari circuit." Circuit? Oh, yes. That's just the name we give our little chat group. It's where all the juiciest gossip is dished out, continued Alumis. How scintillating, replied Caden dryly, implying the exact opposite. Caden glanced at Saria sitting next to him. She was diligently focused on her notes, seemingly oblivious to Alumis's psychic chattering. Did you need something? Oh, not much. I just had the most hilarious story about Saria. Alumis gushed. Not interested, said Caden, focusing on his notes. Anyway, you know those Zobonian space slugs? Well, Saria is absolutely terrified of them. So, a few weeks ago when she was at camp, she was using the latrine, and when she reached for the roll of toilet paper, she came back with a slug the size of her hand. The shock of it. She fled, screaming, and was so surprised that she tripped over her own pants and fell out the front door, and Caden felt his face redden. While Alumis found this entertaining, he was profoundly uncomfortable. No, this isn't... I don't need to know this, Alumis, but it's such a delightful story, and I didn't even get to the best part. The slug had landed on her posterior, so when the other campers found her, they all started calling her Slug Butt. Can you even imagine? Alumis continued. No, Caden insisted, regretting that his newfound ability had become an open channel for Lumivari gossip. Please, no more personal stories. Very well, Alumis relented, a psychic shrug rippling through the ether. I suppose you're not as receptive to gossip as Lyria thought. Caden shook his head, trying to refocus on his history lesson. Yet in the solitude of his thoughts, he realized that his psychic abilities had a double edge. One that not only connected him to the rich tapestry of Scanthar's hidden history and its Lumivari citizens, but also exposed him to the intricate, sometimes burdensome web of other people's lives. As days melted into weeks, Rithalia's lessons were a welcome reprieve from the social stress of being without a Lumivari. Caden often sought solace atop a grassy hillock, away from prying eyes. Here, the whispers of the Lumivari filled his senses, telling tales of distant lands and shared secrets. One day, as he was engrossed in these ethereal conversations, a voice interrupted him. Always alone, aren't you? What's the matter? No Lumivari wants you? It was Corin, a sneer playing on his lips. Caden looked away, swallowing the hurt. Not all bonds are visible, Corin scoffed. Right. Maybe you're just too busy eavesdropping on everyone. I've heard you know things you shouldn't. Go away, Corin, or I'll tell everyone how long it took you to stop wetting the bed. Caden said dismissively. Corin turned very pale and then slinked away angrily. School had its own challenges, while others flaunted their Lumivari bonds. Caden remained an anomaly, setting him apart. He could feel the weight of curious and often suspicious glances. In class, he'd often catch snippets of whispered conversations, gossip exchanged between friends. But sometimes he'd accidentally blurt out a response to something he had psychically overheard, earning startled looks. Like the day when he responded to Yayla's silent lament about her lost pendant, advising her to check the art room. She eyed him suspiciously. "How did you know about that?" I overheard you tell someone," he stammered, trying to cover his tracks. Evenings were reserved for training with Rithalia. Under the silvery canopy of stars, he would practice focusing his psychic abilities, trying to filter out unnecessary chatter. "I wish I could just shut it off sometimes," he admitted one evening, frustration lining his face. Rithalia, ever the mentor, replied, "In time, you'll learn to tune in and out. Remember, every ability comes with its own challenges." Walking to school, Caden often caught snatches of conversations, painting vivid pictures in his mind. But he had to tread carefully. One day, as he passed a group of classmates, he overheard their planning for a surprise birthday party. Later in class, he nearly mentioned it, earning a sharp glare from the birthday girl. The word spread. Caden was an eavesdropper. The cafeteria was its own battlefield. Saria, with her radiant smile, always tried to make him feel included, unaware of the tidbits Caden had on her thanks to Ilumis's entertainment. One day, she mentioned a trip to the Zorbonian market, and it appeared to Saria as if Caden was angrily whispering to himself. "Are you okay, Caden?" she asked, concerned. He managed to catch himself just in time, nodding instead. "Sounds adventurous, especially considering last time." She looked at him oddly, a hint of suspicion in her gaze, but shrugged it off. It was. Caden found that the sun-dappled courtyards of the school provided both shade and a chance for some reprieve from the incessant gossiping of the Lumivari. Caden found himself in one such corner, trying to focus on his studies, when Ilumis's voice danced into his mind. "Want to know a secret? Guess who Slug Butt likes?" Ilumis's tone was mischievous, savoring the jest. Instinctively, Caden blurted out, "I told you don't call her Slug Butt," his voice echoing a little too loudly amidst the muffled conversations. Time seemed to freeze. From the corner of his eye, he saw Saria, who had been chatting with a group of friends, turn sharply towards him. Her face drained of color, her lips quivering, her eyes glossing with a hurt so raw that it seemed to pierce straight through Caden's heart. Saria's voice was a bare whisper shaking with emotion. "So, it's true then? You've been spying on me." Caden stood up abruptly, books and papers scattering at his haste. "Saria, I can explain," but she was already moving. Her steps hurried as she tried to escape the scene, her sobs muffled by the hand she held against her mouth. Without a second thought, Caden pursued her. "Saria, please, just listen." She stopped abruptly, whirling around, tears streaking her face. "Why should I?" "So you can mock me some more? Share more of my secrets?" "No, I would never." Caden's voice cracked with desperation. Just come with me. Let me explain everything." She hesitated, torn between her hurt and the genuine plea in his eyes. Caden reached out, touching her arm gently. "Please, Saria. Just 5 minutes."